Lee Ridley, I was lucky enough to achieve 2 promotions with Scunthorpe United, but nothing compares to the joy I experience when listening to the Iron Hour podcast. Just a heads up, this podcast contains strong language, you know, the good stuff. If this isn't for you, turn off now. For the rest of you, now fucking enjoy the podcast.
Iron fans, thanks for tuning in once again to another episode of the Iron Hour podcast. As always, I'm your host, Barra, and I'm joined by, one of my usual panellists today, in Mr. Max Bell.
Are you, Barrett? Very much like in the Zoom background there. Good little spot on the Donny Road end behind your head.
Thank you very much. Right, well, it's an explosive episode today. There's no way of getting around it. So in today's episode, we celebrate the life of a legend, really, when it comes to supporting Scunthorpe United. And Max will spend a few minutes really just talking to us about the legend that is Mr. Jim Palmer. We have our usual Spy in the Camp segment, but this week it's a much longer and extended version as we really try and understand what's happening at Farsley Celtic, a club which seems in crisis, if we're being honest. So we have the views of 2 Farsley Celtic fans as we really try and do a deep dive into what's going on there. We review the game against Southport at the weekend, and Max, I'm still coming to terms with the fact we haven't won that game and also lost the game. Incredible. And we also look ahead to the game against Farsley Celtic this evening on Tuesday. Now, of course, we're recording this on Monday. So the other news coming today was the FA Trophy draw. We found out who our opponents would be, so we'll spend a little bit of time at the end of the podcast talking about that. Now, Max, kick us off. The only place we can start, really, the sad news coming out of Scunthorpe United over the weekend.
Yeah, and it is a very sombre note. As you said, Barra, there, we're recording this on Monday night, so the news broke on Scunthorpe United social media channels with an in memoriam post where they've said Scunthorpe United is saddened to learn supporter Jim Palmer has died following a short battle with cancer. All of the clubs send their thoughts and condolences to Jim's families and friends, and certainly at this very difficult time, those are messages that I think all of us, or certainly both of us, Barra, would very, very strongly endorse. Is unfortunately Jim's condition has clearly deteriorated very quickly. I dare say everybody listening to this will have some personal story, whether or not it's their family, their friends, their neighbour or work colleague who's had a really difficult battle with cancer. So it's something that I think has touched a lot of people at this very difficult time. And I sort of a bit reminded about what we talked when we talked about the ongoing health recovery of Iron fan Martin Maiden, where we mentioned it's one of the great things about supporting a club like Scunthorpe is you start, really everyone at the club's a stranger, but suddenly you realise, I know that face from whether or not it's on the Donny Road end, in the pub before and after a game, on the coach, on the train, at an away game, whatever it might be. Then you go from knowing their face to knowing their names and sort of being on hello terms, and then all of a sudden, after you've been watching the Iron for many, many years, you've become friends with people you might not have otherwise met. And I think a great way of encapsulating that is just looking at some of the comments that Iron fans have made about Jim, particularly under the line at Facebook. One said, "Brilliant bloke, very loyal supporter. Saddened to hear his passing. Lots of rest in peace messages." I gather there's a comment from Marley saying, "Thank you for doing this for him. All the family appreciate it," because that's what a football club is at its very best. It is a family, and you look back over the last 12 months and it feels like we've lost a lot of supporters recently. I know that's hit a number of Iron fans of all ages, of all generations hard, because that often we joke, don't we? It doesn't matter what happens in your life, that the football club's there and it's worth fighting for. So when the faces we associate with our football club, some of them are sadly no longer with us. So it's been a very, very difficult time, I think, for a lot of Iron fans recently. We very, very strongly echo the club's comments on sending our very best wishes and thoughts and condolences to all of Jim's families and friends, many of whom are also Iron fans that he's got to know very well over the years. And a sombre note, but I'm very confident there's going to be a very good and continuing celebration of of Jim's life, and also all of us as a football club and fans over the coming weeks and months ahead. So yeah, like you said, Barry, a somber but a very important note to start the podcast with, I think.
Very poignant words there, Max. And you know what? I'm going to raise a glass right now. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to raise a cup to Mr. Jim Palmer. You're just about to see it there, but going to have a drink on him. What a legend. Well, it puts everything into perspective, really, that. And, you know, we do have a lot to talk about when it comes to what's going on, not just at Scunthorpe United, but other clubs. And this week, we thought we'd spend a little bit of time giving another club a platform. So as you guys know, we have our usual Spy in the Camp segment where we spend 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes tops, speaking to fans or journalists or even, you know, vice chairman, people working in the media of these clubs. But today we've got a much longer, in-depth dive as we have a look at just what is happening at Farsley Celtic. Right, well, we have in store for you now an action-packed, an extended and possibly an explosive Spy in the Camp. So I'm pleased to say I'm joined this week by two fans from Farsley Celtic. I have George Fernley. How are you doing, George?
Not too bad yourself.
And Mr. David Pearce.
Barry, pleased to meet you, mate.
Thanks for joining us today. Now, I guess what a lot of Scunthorpe fans, what a lot of football fans want to know, David, is what is happening at Farsley Celtic?
Yeah, that's. I was sort of anticipating that, Barry, in some ways. I don't know how long you've got, mate, or whether you've got a duvet and a pillow, but I can sort of begin to go through this for you. When I say what's going on, I guess that guys across like the non-league landscape, and a lot of you guys will know already, is that there isn't a playable pitch at Farsley. The last home game that Farsley played was against Buxton in April. It was the last game of last season. So the story in some ways, begins there. It was then, earlier than that the owner, and this is Paul Barthorpe, who's the owner. He's been the owner of the club since probably the last 5 years. Decided for pretty good reasons, I think, in a lot of ways, to put a 3G artificial pitch down at Farsley. And that was going to be a major ground redevelopment that he had. And I think there were very good reasons for that. The planning permission, in my opinion, came late. I don't think it came through until about July. The planning permission came through from the local authority. And this was sort of for the centrepiece of that planning permission was the laying of a 3G artificial pitch. There was other stuff going on as well, new floodlights, new scoreboard, sort of ancillary stuff like that was going to be put in as well. But that was the big part of it. Now, the idea was obviously that the new pitch would be laid before the start of the current season, of the 24-25 season. So when work began in July, the topsoil was removed and then work stopped. And there's been no work done since then for a whole host of reasons. Now, the official line is that once work began, the removal of the topsoil, that revealed problems related to the site, right? Lower down, different engineering issues. And we were told all sorts of things that we were told there was methane leakage, the place, I mean, people that have been to Farsley might have thought the place looked like a tip. It was in fact built on a council tip when Farsley first played there in 1948. So there might well have been methane problems, but there wasn't anything that was probably insurmountable. But mysteriously, work stopped. So all we then got was updates from the chairman saying that there had been unexpected problems and that work would begin at a whole series of dates. We would give date after date after date, work would begin. Different chairman's updates that were coming out on the club website. And all the time that we were told that these were unexpected problems, and then the tone began to change, and we were told that there were contractual problems with contractors and third-party contractors that they couldn't get to do the work at a given time. So nothing happened, right? No work has been done there for nearly 5 months. So consequently, the games were all played away from home. So how it began was that I think there were, George might remember this better than me, I think there were 8 pre-season friendly games all played away. Then when the season began, what the league had allowed Farsley to do was to reverse the first four fixtures. So the first 4 games, and I think they were Buxton, Southport, Warrington, Marine, I think they were the first 4. We played them, they should have been played at Farsley, we played away from home, right? After that, the league's patience began to sort of be stretched, I would say. And what they said was you need to find an alternative an alternative venue to play the games. And that was when the fun started then, was when we sort of started looking for an alternative venue. The first one that the club came up with was for the game in September against Leamington. That was our first home league game of the season, and that was played 67 miles away in Derbyshire at Alfreton's ground. And then from that, the next home game that we played, I think it was the game that we played at Guiseley in the Cup against Kettering. Then we played our next home game. That was the game at Spennymoor. They beat us 3-0 at Bradford Park Avenue at their ground, the Horsehall Community Stadium in Bradford. So we've been all over the place with it. The next game is against Darlington on Saturday. And as yet, we don't know where that'll be played. There's been no announcement from the club. So God knows what Darlington fans think. I don't know what they've told, where they've told their coach driver to go. Anywhere in the universe would be a good call, because we, as fans, we've got no idea at all where that game will take place. The league has said, though, that we need to find a permanent venue for games. Now, this is where the fun, not the fun starts, Barra, to be fair, but it's where the sort of some of the mystery about this begins to be questioned to me. We were told continually that we'd be ready for the Leamington game, we'd be ready for the Spennymoor game. Now, in the National League paper article, I don't know whether you saw it or your readers saw it, I've got a copy of it here. Our owner has said now that we'll be ready for the 1st of January. We play Radcliffe Borough at home. So that leaves us 5 games, home games, before then, of where will they be played, right? Now, I'm not sure whether an agreement has been made. I mean, I know it won't be Park Avenue because I've got friends there who've told me it won't be there. I doubt very much whether it'll be Guiseley. They were far too expensive. I think they were charging, I think it was like £4,000 for the game that we played there against Kettering. Alfreton, too far away. But if it isn't Park Avenue and it isn't going to be Guiseley, I'll tell you now, it won't be in Yorkshire where we're playing. And I reckon if you watch your socials in the next week, you will probably piss yourself laughing when you find out where we're going to end up playing, because I can virtually assure you it won't be in Yorkshire. So that's been it. The reason that's the pitch problem. Now, whether the reasons are engineering issues or third-party contractual issues, pretty much is for you, for Farsley fans, or for guys watching your broadcast to decide themselves. Whether there are underlying financial issues, that's something that fans have been extremely concerned about. It's something that I can't say because I can't prove it. But it would appear to many that with players not having been paid on time, with bar staff not having been paid on time, with suppliers not having been paid on time, there's evidently some sort of cash flow issue at the club. Even though the owner, in his article in the non-league paper on Saturday on the 27th, has said that there aren't any financial issues. He's made a lot of statements like that. He said there'll be no debt burden on the club. He said that the future of the club is secure. I suppose he's bound to say that in a lot of respects, but I think communication between the board and the fan base has been dreadful. We weren't even told about the ground not being ready until January through any statement from the board on the club website communicating directly with fans. We only found out about it through an article or an interview that he'd done with Andy Mitchell in the National League paper. So fans are appalled by it, horrified by it. The players, they came out on in an article that was printed in the Yorkshire Post. They were saying that they felt that trust had broken down between the board and the players. It was a collective statement that the players made. They were alleging that there'd been repeated problems with them being paid. And they said that loyalty has broken. It's taken us so far, but trust has been broken by the owner. And it's taken players and staff to a point of no return. That was the view of the players. Now, again, to be fair, the owner in the non-league paper interview says that relationships with the players have been completely patched up. I desperately hope that's the case, because you don't want any sort of player rebellion. That's the last thing we want. Fan confidence in the board is broken. For the first time, we're seeing, Barthorpe out, flags being displayed at games at Hereford there were, and prior to that. So it's a tense situation at the club. And what fans are worried about, that'll be a repeat of 2010 when we were kicked out of the league before, and clawed the way back. ownership change, and COVID and all the rest of it to get where we are now. It's our 6th season in this league. For a small club, it's an astonishing achievement, Barry, just so you'll appreciate. Not like I can see the backdrop behind you, your stadium. God, you won't see ours. Ours, mate, it looks like Passchendaele or the Somme. So we've got an issue. We don't know where we're playing. We don't know how long we'll be playing away from home for. How long players are going to be happy with that. Wherever we end up. Because as I say, I don't think it'll be Park Avenue and it won't be Guiseley. Outside of that, I can't think where it'll be. I know it won't be Alfred, and friends I've got down there are saying it's not going to be there. But it could be anywhere in the Western world at the moment, because we've had no announcement from the club. So that's the issue with it. There's a lot of repair work that needs to be done to sort of patch relationships between the board and the staff. And the staff, that's staff who've been unpaid, and the players, obviously, because the statement that the players made in the Yorkshire Post article was strident. They were accusing a chairman of breaking trust. Players taking a stand over wage payments are being paid on time. The owners come out now and said everything's fine. It's just a bottleneck. It's interesting. I mean, the word he uses is it's a bottleneck. It's a bottleneck that's been there since April. We've not played at home since the Buxton game in April. And I just wonder, we might end up having Buxton as a bloody home ground. We've got no idea. So we've got a bit of a problem. We're told that the financial viability of the club is secure. We're told that. I desperately hope that's the case, because bankruptcy or administration, or even the non-fulfillment of fixtures and the penalties that might bring from the league, would be incredibly damaging to a small club like ours with a small budget and a small, a relatively small fan base. So we've been told all along that it will be ready. It will be ready at different dates, ready. It hasn't been. We've been let down continually on that basis, unfortunately. We're now told it'll be ready, as I say, on the 1st of January as a little New Year gift for everybody. Gosh, looking at the pitch, I'm not an engineer myself, but looking at the pitch, I'd be amazed if it was ready for the 1st of January. But I'd love to be proven wrong, Barry. I'd love to be proven wrong about that. So whilst the owner is saying that a lot of these are short-term problems, I reckon it's gone well beyond that. My view is that these problems are significantly more serious than that. The club's had no incoming revenue for 6 months, been paying out, no bar, no season ticket sales. The owner did actually say he was disappointed with the number of season ticket sales. I don't know how many you've got at Scunny. We've had 4 this season, Barra, 4 season ticket sales. And that's a miracle, actually. When you haven't got a pitch, it's difficult selling season tickets, isn't it? The people that bought 4, I feel genuine sympathy for, because they're going to be travelling to bloody Alfred or Buxton or Curzon Ashton to be watching their football. So maybe there'll be some refunds in store for them. I don't know.
It's up there with when KFC ran out of chicken, I think.
Well, yeah. It could be. It's very similar to that. It's a depressing scenario, because as a fan base, we've loved it in this league. We've struggled in this league. Obviously the COVID seasons, you can write those off. But under the current owner, we've finished 20th for the last 3 seasons. We've stayed up on the last day of each of the last 3 seasons, unbelievably. Even though we beat Buxton in the last game of last season, but the 2 seasons before that, we lost on the last day and still stayed up, because other poor buggers lost even more heavily than us, but we managed to stay up. And this season, the irony of it is, even though the manager went, Clayton Donaldson was sacked in September, there's a good squad. I genuinely feel there's a good squad. George will talk to you probably a little bit more about that than I can do, but there's a good squad, I think, with an inspirational new manager in Pav Singh, an excellent communicator, and somebody that's very interested in sort of building bridges. His whole philosophy is exactly what we need. I think what we need is the owner to, in my opinion, he might disagree with me, but the owner to build some bridges with the fan base again, because it's become stretched. The owner's car apparently was attacked after the Guiseley game. The game at Guiseley against Kettering. I don't know what's happened with that, because what the owner did say was that they knew the identity of the culprits who had attacked his vehicle. But if the culprits came forward, he would seek repatriation with them personally. Otherwise, he'd give their identities to the police. But nothing's happened with that. I don't think anybody came forward, and no police action's been taken. So that I don't know. I don't know where we are with that. George might know some more about that. I don't know. But so it's all a bit strange. It's become quite toxic, the atmosphere between fans and the board. The club appears dysfunctional. The announcement of fixtures has been horrifically late, absolutely shockingly late. I can give you one amusing example of it. This is before the game against Spennymoor that was due to be played on Saturday the 19th of September. The club only announced where the game would be played on the Tuesday. Our club announced it would be switched from a Saturday fixture to a Friday fixture, and that was announced on the Tuesday. Not good for Spennymoor fans travelling. A lot on social media being in touch with me saying, where's it going on, David, this game? Farsley announced that it's going to take place at Bradford Park Avenue on Tuesday. Unbelievably, on Wednesday, Bradford Park Avenue put a statement out saying it won't take place at Bradford Park Avenue's ground as Farsley announced, because Farsley hadn't paid for it. Hasty dealings, I dare say, were then done between Park Avenue and Farsley. It was paid for. On the Thursday, Spennymoor fans who were travelling down to Farsley received confirmation. That's just unacceptable. They were told on Thursday that they'd be playing a rearranged fixture. It was only confirmed on a Thursday where their Friday night fixture would be played. The attendances have collapsed at those games. You're looking at an attendance, maybe 100 Farsley fans turned up for that game, if that, 60 or more from Spennymoor. And where we end up playing between now and Christmas, I dare say, is going to put even more pressure on fans. 25 consecutive away games we've played with pre-season friendlies, Barra, and the games, the league and cup games this season. And it, as I'm sure you can appreciate, it puts an enormous burden on travelling fans. And I'm sure with Christmas coming up and the world as it is, the numbers will dwindle. So it's tricky. Very tricky.
Proper gallows humour from you at times there, David. But so many things to drill down onto. I guess the obvious one would be how long had Paul Barthorpe been there before things started to come awry, particularly with a pitch? Is it a new project for him, or?
It's 5 years. It's the first football club, as far as I know, that he's been involved with. I think his sort of background was sort of engineering, construction, which has made this even more surprising because early on we were told that a lot of the work would be done by sort of certainly companies or associate businesses that the chairman knew, and that makes it even stranger to me that no work at all has taken place. All we get is that there are unexpected problems related to the pitch. We have never had those explained to us what they were. We were told it was methane, and then that story died very quickly. It might still be methane, but it would be nice. Effective communication would allay a lot of the anxieties of supporters. So it'd be lovely to know what the problem was. The latest that we've got, you're coming on a statement the chairman made on Facebook. I think it was on the 11th of October, something like that. He was saying we're still being let down by third-party contractors. He said players that weren't getting paid wages were being let down by third-party payroll companies. It looks as though every problem was a third-party issue. And it would be lovely to know exactly, specifically, what the nature of the problems were. And I think that's all that fans want. Same with the embargo. We're under a National League embargo again. Barry, you probably know about that for being in breach of league financial regulations. Whether or not, a lot of fans think it's because we owe Danny Ellis and Clayton Donaldson, the previous manager, that we owe them money, that we owe coaching and medical staff money, that we owe some players money, that we owe bar staff money, that we owe coach companies and security firms money. Whether all that's true or not, I don't know. My suspicion is it probably is, but obviously I don't know. But the embargo needs lifting. When we were under a league embargo last season, after Christmas, when injuries and suspensions began to kick in, we couldn't replace any players, form collapsed, and as I say, we stayed up by a whisker. I'd hate that to happen again this year, given that I do think we've got a much stronger squad and, as I say, a quite inspirational manager who I think, will do well for Farsley.
George, I guess it's time to talk a little bit about the football, and as David alluded to there, the manager in Pav Singh doing a good job. I think he's the highest ranked British South Asian manager in English football. So, I mean, learning on the job and a real tough task.
Yeah, he has had previous managing experience at, I think, is it Liversedge, David, they managed?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So he has had some managing experience, and he's got a lot to do with the FA, coaching with like England and stuff like that. So he's got a lot of experience. He originally came in as our director of football, and then has found himself in this role, which is incredible. He's had loads to do with the our ETS squad, which is what you call our under-18s, our emerging talent squad, who have who in their first two seasons in the FA Youth Cup have done unbelievably well, and both times got to like the first proper rounds. Getting a game away last season against Stockport County and losing against a team who that had a couple first team players in. And this season they've just drawn Accrington Stanley in the first round away at their stadium, which is fantastic achievements and has got a lot to do with Pav Singh.
I guess, I mean, 15th in the league, that against the backdrop of what's going on behind the scenes, as we've just heard there from David, that must seem like an incredible achievement.
Oh, it is. I mean, we are in all comps, we are 7 wins, 2 draws, 7 losses. And in the league, we're 5 wins, 2 draws, 6 losses. We've got 17 points and we've played 23 consecutive away games. Not one, and especially like you say, Barra, with everything that's going on, the amount of distractions, it is strange that we are where we are. But I mean, you have conversations with players, and it's actually quite incredible the mindset that they do have. It was only at Hereford, Cole Hyde, our young 18-year-old right back, right wing back, came over, spoke to us, and we just said, but he said this main thing. He just went, as soon as we step on that pitch, nothing else matters. It's about the football, and that's the sort of mentality that I really do think that Pav Singh and maybe a couple of the senior players have really installed in this current squad, and that's could be what's saving us.
And Ben Atkinson probably been the standout player this season with 4 goals.
Yeah, he has. He has been good. Ben's one of them that he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's proper captain material, real captain material. I mean, he did wear the captain's airband against Hereford. Um, I mean, because Conor Branson's suspended and the amount of injuries that we've got, we're getting whittled down quite a bit. But yeah, Ben's a brilliant player, an aggressive midfielder, and he just really you never see him stopping. His drive is unbelievable. Just a real. He's one of them where you just say, he's a 7 out of 10 every game. If you're gonna rely on someone, you rely on Ben.
I guess it's hard to kind of pin you down to, specific tactics, what your formation would be, because as we've heard, a lot of these home games being played away from home with different pitches, that home advantage just, well, doesn't exist, does it? Have you seen any kind of like consistent style throughout the season, or has Pav come in and changed things drastically from what Clayton was doing before?
Yeah, well, going back to last season, we played a lot of hoofball. We played a lot of long ball, and that took out some players that simply just didn't play that way. A good example being Marley Blair, who had previously been at Liverpool Academy, Burnley Academy. Um, he just finished playing out in Iceland and then ended up with us. And this is he was told we were going to play on the ball football and he was going to be a winger. I played 2 games and he were a left back and we played hoofball. So players like him, it just got taken out completely. But it kept us up in the end. Did just getting out this season with the squad we've got and with the prospect of possibly having a 3G pitch and not the. It wasn't a ploughed field. It was quite good this season. Last season actually our pitch, wasn't it, David, compared to previous years where
I'm not sure.
You do that face, Barra. Honestly, a few years back, you'd have come to our place in winter. It looked like the pitch was similar to what it is now with no topsoil.
I was there over Christmas last year. Yeah, Farmers Field springs to mind, if I'm being honest, George.
I know, and I promise you that's not as bad as it's been some years. But Yeah, we play quite on the ball, on the ground football. I mean, despite the loss against Hereford, some of the passing moves, especially in the first 25, 20 minutes, we were putting together, were fantastic. Like working it, like passing ourselves out of trouble. Despite the front three of Hereford just having tremendous pace, but we were just passing round them and stuff like that. As a Farsley fan, you go, "Ooh, look at that!" And you start clapping. You really respect it 'cause we haven't seen it often in the last few years.
David, let's loop back to you. We've had a bit of a pickup there from the football side of things, which seems to be honest, exceptional against the setback, against the background of what's going on behind the scenes. What does the future look like for Farsley Celtic?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can just, before I talk about that, Bar, I'll just add something to what George said there. I agreed with all of that. I think some other guys have impressed me on the footballing side. When we played at Chester, a place we never get anything from Chester ever. I can't remember us ever. I've never seen us win there anyway. But it's sort of like big rearguard action from guys like Tom Allen and Ryan Watson, some of the older guys there. The determination that they showed was incredible. It was a shame because I think it began to get to them when we played the first game at Park Ave against Spennymoor. The players' heads just didn't seem in it. I think the whole thing was beginning to piss everybody off to such a degree. It was the most lackluster performance I've ever seen. Pav picked them up and they did beat Peterborough in the next game, beat Sports 3-0. Like George said, going to Hereford, bit of a hide into nothing. I hate saying that. Coming to you guys on Tuesday is a tough ask for this team. But hopefully that sort of spirit that I saw at Chester, it was just an exciting 0-0 that occasionally happens in this league. I just hope that sort of resurfaces at your place tomorrow, but we'll see. The future, I've thought about this long and hard, sober and drunk. And I sort of always end up in the same place with it, Barry, if I'm being quite honest with you. What I do think is, I think that the owner is committed to the ground redevelopment. He's invested a lot of money in it, and I think he's absolutely committed to it. Whether it's cash flow problems or whether it's third-party contractual problems or whatever the problems are, as he repeatedly says, it's a private business, and he is under no obligation to go public on the problems, financial issues of the club. And I get that, it's his business. I don't tell him how much my bloody gas bill is. He probably isn't bothered, but he's got no duty to tell me any of that. I think he's committed to it. There've been dreadful rumours in the background that all he wants to do is clear the site and build houses on it. I've never subscribed to that. He's invested a huge amount of money in it, in the planning application and the process. Whatever the problems are, cash flow, or whether they are genuine engineering and subsoil issues at the club, I think the owner's commitment to it will be sustained. All that I think is we will just muddle through in this chaotic way until it is finished. Either until it is finished or until we maybe don't fulfil fixtures and league penalties are applied against the club. Now, what I'm basing that on, Barrett, isn't any sort of prejudice or issue with the owner. I think he wants the club to be successful, and I think he wants to recoup a lot of the money that is invested in it. But the ugly fact remains that since April, we've not had a ground, right? In the article in the National League paper, he's saying it's not going to be until the 1st of January when we play Radcliffe that we'll play at the Citadel. As I say, looking at the state of that pitch, God knows how much work he's doing, and I can't see that happening. It might happen. I know it's on the club website. All our remaining fixtures in January and February, it says venue to be confirmed. I don't think even maybe the owner fully believes that the pitch will be ready for the 1st of January. I might be wrong, but it would be a miracle to me if it was.
Can I just press you on that? So what would be the instinct there? What would be the drive behind setting a time frame, a goal that seems unrealistic? Because, the chickens are going to go home to roost if that isn't...
Yeah, they already have. I mean, if you talk about chickens hatching, the place is leaping with chicks. They've been hatching all bloody season, Barra, because what's happened was we were told that it would be ready. We were given an assurance it'd be ready for the 21st of September for the Leamington game. It wasn't. We were then given an assurance that it would be ready for the Spennymoor game. It wasn't. Now we've just read in the non-league paper on Sunday that it will be ready for the 1st of January. Now, it might well be, but I think given the scale of the work and the background of sort of contractual problems that we've had in initiating any work, that might be optimistic. I think that these, and again, I might be wrong, but I can only tell you as a fan, that a loyal fan like the guys like George and the whole cluster of us that are committed to this club, we're given these dates just, I think, to sort of almost appease us, right? It'll be ready for the 21st, the criticism calms down. It'll be ready for Spennymoor, so the criticism calms down. It'll be ready for the 1st of January, so the criticism calms down. Now, so far, there have been more false dawns more false dawns than even with the bloody Northern Lights flashing everywhere this club's had. Nothing is actually happening. This week, there's been no work at the ground. Now, we're told it will start next week, right? We were given an absolute assurance work will begin in the week commencing the 23rd of September. It never did. We were given an absolute assurance that it would recommence again a month after that. It never did. So all I can do is look at what's happened. I don't think the owner's going to pull the plug and run away. I don't think that at all. But what I do think is that it'll just muddle through with deadlines being pushed forward until the work begins. Now, as I say, I've not got a crystal ball here to look into. I think if I did, I'd probably be too frightened to look into it because we've not played for 6 months. We were told the job would take 6 to 8 weeks, right? We're now approaching month 7 of pretty much inaction at the Citadel over at Barrow. So when you say, what does the future hold? I think it's only a personal view. I think it'll just muddle on. It'll just muddle on. We'll play our next 5 games away from home. I think that's been agreed this week. Sorry, obviously away from home, but at one venue. The league are keen now that we find an alternative venue so that fans and players and officials from other clubs aren't left in this absurd uncertainty of not knowing until Wednesdays and Thursdays where they're playing on Fridays or Saturdays. So that'll change. I think there'll be an announcement this week that'll say, right, there will be one designated alternative venue until Christmas. Because as I've just said, and I hope I'm not being repetitive, we've been told 1st of January in Radcliffe will be the game that we're back at the Citadel. So we've got 5 games that will be away from home. I'm certain it'll be outside Yorkshire. I can't think of anywhere that'll have us here. But we don't know where. Come the 1st of January, if it isn't ready, another series of ad hoc arrangements will be put in place so we keep playing away from home. The issue then is what take the league would have on that. Would they say, right, you've got to stay at this place, wherever it might be announced this week, all season or not? I don't know. I don't know how long it'll be till the league's patience runs out. Just to summarise that, to me, the future is just continual muddle, right, and shifting deadlines.
You say there, you're not quite sure what your instinct tells you about whether the patience of the league is growing thin. Do you feel that fans, players, do you think you're close to that to really being a point of no return?
I couldn't speak for the players. I know from talking to some of the players, there's sort of definite disquiet about irregular payment of wages. And I fully get that. I'm old-fashioned enough to think if you go to work, you're paid, aren't you, if you're on any sort of contractual arrangement. I get all that. So I think with the players, there must be some concern because the statement they made in the Yorkshire Post on the 21st of October said that they accused the chairman of breaking trust. So there must be an issue in terms of the relationship between the players and the board. There must be, because they've said publicly that there is one. The seriousness of that, I can't comment on that. With the fans, obviously, it's nothing to talk about, because when you talk about home attendances, we've not had one since the Buxton game at the end of last season. There's a core of, loyal away support that's being stretched. Fans are extremely concerned about the board. Trust, just as with the players, maybe they feel that trust has been broken because deadlines or assurance we've been given about when works would either be completed or begin have never materialised. So I think the patience of fans is a breaking point. There's not been a no confidence vote, but from the supporters club committee about the way in which the board are handling things. I know there's a supporters club committee meeting tomorrow night. I can't preempt what will be said there, but there might be some people saying that the supporters club itself needs to take some action to formalise supporters' concern about the way communication, particularly is managed between the board and the club, and on the issue of trust about whether or not the supporters are actually being told the truth about the financial situation around the redevelopment programme and the payment of players and staff. But that's for the meeting tomorrow. Not tomorrow, we're there tomorrow behind you. That meeting's on Wednesday night.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for your insight there. I think we'll probably wrap it up. I mean, I could spend another hour, if I'm being honest, listening to it. It's an incredible situation. There were a lot of similarities there, I'll be honest, with what was going on with us over recent years. Some of the things you were saying, it's just, it really does ring true.
No, I can appreciate that, because you've had sticky times yourself, haven't you? And I know, Farsley fans were desperate, that you survived, a bit like Blythe. And there's not always been a lot of love lost between Farsley and Blythe, rivals at the bottom of that league for a long time to avoid the drop. But you don't want these clubs disappearing. It's far too damaging for the status of the league.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much, George. Cheers, David. Appreciate that.
Nice to meet you, Barry. See you tomorrow, mate.
Cheers, Barry. Thank you.
Well, Max, where to start after that? I mean, incredible situation unfolding at Farsley.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only think of a million places to start, but God only knows where to finish. I mean, massive thanks to David and George for joining us there. I think a lot of Scunny fans listening to that, it'll feel familiar in a weird sort of way. So many parallels in terms of the off-field issues that they've discussed. I mean, yeah, it just I almost think if they were quote unquote a bigger club, that their situation will be getting a lot more attention. And look, that's the way the world works sometimes, but it shouldn't do. We shouldn't be in a situation where the question is, will this club last the season? Well, I'm not confident they were. I said it on the podcast before. When we're chatting on the bus to away games and stuff like that, I've said it before. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they do get the off-field situation, and the on-field situation in terms of the pitch sorted. But yeah, it's very, very hard not to feel for everybody involved at Farsley Celtic, because, as you say, wow. I mean, yeah, that was a hell of a spy in the camp section from you there. Well done.
Right. I mean, before we get stuck into the Farsley game and kind of preview that, we have to have a look at Saturday, Max. I mean, as I said at the start of the episode, I'm in shock that not only have we not won, but we've somehow lost that game. Now, to summarise for anybody that doesn't know what happened on Saturday, anybody who's been living in a cave, now Colin Roberts put us 1-0 up with a fantastic free kick, actually. And it was all going so well until about the 43rd minute, when a mix-up at the back saw Will Evans playing Danny Lloyd, who equalised after Nicholson tried to do a job on Evans as well, just to make doubly sure. Not long after the break, we got the equaliser. The long throw-in, finally paying dividends, as Nicholson rifled one into the box, and Danny Whitehall got on the end of it to put us 2-1 up. And we was in cruise control up until the 59th minute, when a ball over the top was kind of missed. The header was missed by Nicholson. They've got in, equalised, and then just 62 seconds later, Maxi Coogan is conceding possession, really, in a very dangerous position. And Danny Lloyd nipping in for a second goal and putting them 3-2 up, and that was the way it finished. 3 defensive mix-up, all by one of our centre-backs, each centre-back taking responsibility for a goal on Saturday. Max, how did you see it?
Just mind-boggling. I'm still in disbelief, really. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, the last section really did put it into perspective. Either losing a friend or a family member, or heaven forbid losing a football club, isn't quite the same as losing a game. But Jesus Christ, we've said before that the one big upside about playing 5-3-2 was defensive rigidity. But for 3 moments of absolute madness, just so disappointing. It's a game we should have won very comfortably. We could have been out of sight at half time, but Yeah, like you say, to be honest, I'd have been disappointed coming away with a draw, and instead we came away with nothing.
I mean, I'm going to be completely honest, right? So I said this on Twitter afterwards. I said this because that was my reflection after the game, and it hasn't changed. Tactically on Saturday, I don't think Butler got a lot wrong. I think we were far the better team, if I'm being honest. We have a look at the expected goals per game. I think ours was 2.87 and theirs was less than a goal. It was 0.83 or something like that. I mean, we looked, other than those three calamities, we looked pretty solid, Max.
Yeah, but I sometimes think, there are three types of lies, aren't there? Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Credit to Southport, they were very clinical. They had 3 shots on target, and they took them. If I was Jim Bentley, or if I was a Southport fan or a player, I'd have been coming off that pitch on cloud nine, thinking we did what was required offensively. So, but look, we made 3 massive errors. We could have got away with 1, and we'd have won the game, and we'd have probably deservedly won the game. We could have taken a point if we'd got away with 2, but it's in a way it's hard to pick out which goal I was most disappointed by. The first, because if we get in at half time at 1-0, I think we win that game. We were cruising at that point. It was completely needless from Evans. The second one, because it was just a long ball over the top. We got ourselves back in front again, and that was the point in the game when we should have been really going for the jugular. I remember turning around to my dad at half time and going, if we get stuck into these, we'll beat them. Like, the game was so there for the grasping. But then, as you said in your little intro, the third goal then coming just, literally a minute after we'd already conceded. We had the kickoff. No professional side at any level should be conceding a minute after you kick off. And it was just dumbfounded, just, as if we'd been punched in the stomach. Because then the third goal was a massive boost of encouragement for Southport to go, oh my God, we're going to win this game. Let's defend well, let's compress the space. For the first time, they looked, really encouraged by their own performance. And yeah, just a waste, unfortunately. 3 points that we should have had, and we've ended up with none, and down to third.
I think for me, probably the second goal was the most disappointing because, yes, we highlighted Nicholson's mistake there, but also there seemed to be the freedom of the city in the middle of that park leading up to that goal, Max.
Yeah, and look, fuck-ups of this quality require teamwork. I don't usually like blaming people. I have a bit of sympathy with Butler. You can't really legislate as a manager for defensive errors. I think sometimes as football fans, we like blaming individuals because it's easier. We can quantify, we can get our heads around it. But no manager ever can control that. You just can't. So, look, we're in a position where we've got 2 big home games coming up. I know Andy Butler's been out in the media saying great opportunity to bounce back on Tuesday, and then at home to Radcliffe as well on Saturday. We need to be taking 6 points from those 2 games. And look, if we do, and we put in 2 good performances, people will calm down. But Southport, so disappointing.
Saw some fans comment that they were frustrated that having gone 3-2 down, at that point we just kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, chucked everything forward. And I suppose there is a suggestion that the last 30 minutes it was very much get the ball forward and hope something sticks. Is that the way you saw it?
We did go more direct, but I wouldn't necessarily be surprised by that. Or, I can understand why we went more direct. It was the card that we had to play in terms of the bench substitutions, even before we brought Boyce on for the last 5 minutes and quite literally stuck him up top. It was inevitable in a way. You think that Southport, having got in front, were immediately able to drop 15 yards deeper, defend much more narrow, be more compact. They're not trying to press forwards. They're not going to allow us to get into one-on-one situations, and they're going to make it much more difficult for us in open play. You mentioned there that the 2 goals that we scored, obviously the second one was from a long throw in anyway. So if we'd have scored a third from another long throw, I wouldn't have cared. We did put them under pressure. The ball just didn't quite bounce for us in the box. But look, the Southport players were defending for their lives by that point. They were very easy to go basically 6-4 non. Don't blame them for that fact. They slowed the game down. They time wasted. They faked injuries. They did all of the things that I would have done in their shoes. So there's no point crying about it. We only had ourselves to blame for the fact that we were in that position in the first place.
You talked there about Boyce being chucked up front for the last kind of 5-10 minutes of the game. Defensive duties. Do you think he's got to come back in on Tuesday night, hasn't he? Three defensive cock-ups. You'd fancy him to get back into the squad, surely.
Yeah, I think if I were a betting man, I would probably have my money on him coming in. I don't think it should be for Nicholson, because offensively, I still think his long throw is an important weapon in our arsenal, particularly when sides defend well in open play against us. By
that logic, then, does it have to be Evans then? Because he's the middle one of he would have to be the middle one of the three. You wouldn't like to see Coogan play in the middle, or it'd have to be a light for light, wouldn't it? Or Boyce play on the right if he took Coogan's spot, if you see what I mean.
Potentially, yes. I think in a way Evans's error was the most damaging. If we get in at half time winning that game, having been comfortably the best side in the first half, I do think we win that game. But look, what was it Gino De Campo said? If me auntie had wheels, she'd be a bike. So there's no point trying to rewrite past football matches. It's a case of what will most likely win us the game against Farsley, and that's not making defensive errors. If we make another 2, let alone another 3, then we'll lose on Tuesday night, and we'll deserve to. So let's see what kind of choice Andy Butler goes for. He's surprised us before this season. Wouldn't shock me if we were surprised again.
I think a lot of the frustration for a lot of Scunny fans is the fact that, well, we've made no progress, really. We're effectively exactly where we was a week ago. A disappointing result on Saturday and having to do it all midweek at home.
Never mind a week ago. I don't think we've made progress on a year ago. Look, I said it before and I will say it again. By sacking Dean in the summer, we sent the message the second was a failure, and we're now in third. And okay, look, the fixtures dropped kindly for us. Tamworth got 96 points last season. I don't think it will be that many again this season, but fair play to Curzon. The way they're playing recently, it could be. So, look, we'll see the way it goes. If we can just win enough games, just concentrate on ourselves, get back to the top of the table, get back to playing good football, then I dare say all the Iron fans will be happy, and it will take a lot of pressure off.
Well, Max, you talked there about the pressure being on ahead of Tuesday's game against Farsley Celtic. Systematically, how do you think we'll line up?
I think we'll line up playing 5-3-2, right? I don't think one poor result, and don't get me wrong, it was a poor result at Southport, will change Butler's philosophy on that front. I just hope that it reflects the second half performance against Rushall. Get the wing backs nice and high. Let's have Barrows making those overlapping runs in front of Roberts. Let's get in behind their defenders. Let's pull balls back. Let's have Beeston in midfield making those late runs into the box. That's exactly how we scored against Rushall. And let's go for the jugular. The way in which you erase people's memories of bad performances is by good performances. If we at home on Tuesday win 2 or 3-0, play well, we'll be top of the league, and Southport will be a dim and distant memory.
I guess the danger, though, is always that, as I've mentioned, we're very much in that cycle of where we was last week. Let's say we get a fantastic result, we turn them over. The pressure is then on Saturday that if we don't get a win, we are back to where we started.
Yeah, it is. And I think of the points we've dropped at home already so far this season, losing Leeds to Warrington, to Chorley, to Oxford City. Those are 6 big points. But look, you're going to be in pressure situations when you want to win the league, when you need to be getting 90 plus points to stand a realistic chance of winning the league, when you set the expectations clear as they did in the summer. So that it is what it is. It's going to be the same now. If somebody like a Curzon really pushes us close for the league title, then that pressure is going to keep going, and whichever side or sides can deal with the pressure is going to be the one that will win the league, or not.
And Sam Fishburn obviously had a fantastic game last Tuesday. expectation that he might get back into the squad this week?
It's a good question. Maybe. I don't think us going forward was the issue against Southport on Saturday. Though I think offensively we still looked relatively dangerous, especially in the first hour. But that's why Butler's in charge. He gets paid to make those kind of decisions for better or for worse. And I just hope that if the game on the first half of the first hour doesn't go to plan A, as we all hope it will, that we do have a plan B there, whether or not that's Fishburne or somebody else.
And obviously, Carlton getting back into contention of the last couple of games, it's hard to see how he fits into this, really. Do we think he's a replacement for one of the two main strikers, or is his place now to be that impact player?
I'm not sure yet. There's a difference between not being injured and being 100% match fit. Based on, admittedly, the limited views that we've had of him so far in the main season, but also in pre-season, I'm not totally convinced that he's an out-and-out striker. But that hasn't stopped Butler playing players up front who we're not totally convinced are out-and-out strikers, whether or not it's Beeston, whether or not it was Roberts away at Scarborough. So we'll just have to see. If Cart wants to be starting games for us, then he's got to prove it to Butler on the training ground. He's got to prove it to his teammates and to us as fans on the pitch during games. And whether or not that's over 90 minutes or 30 minutes, if he's scoring goals, if he's creating goals and we're winning football matches, nobody will care.
And it was good to see Carlton actually clear something up this week. We spoke in depth actually about the fact that it was hard to believe that he didn't realise he was banned, but him actually putting credence to that and saying he didn't actually know he'd been sent off. There was a big confusion because cards were brandished and there was confusion over which player had been sent off, and actually he was given assurances by Chorley that it wasn't him, only to be told on the eve of the start of the season that it in fact was him. So frustration for him, and actually I'm glad he did clear that up, because it certainly puts to bed some of the more cynical Iron fans who questioned whether he did or didn't know. And I guess the other thing to mention, Max, is Butler's pre-game interview this week, where he talked he chucked a couple of dates out there, actually. He said that Laws would be out for 2 to 3 weeks, but then just 60 seconds later said he wouldn't be available until the back end of November, which, 4 weeks away. So frustration for him. And similar question to what I asked Marco last week, what's his route back into this squad?
Right now, I'm not sure there is a massively clear path. I think Laurie's an out-and-out winger, but Roberts as a number 10 has worked. If Robert needs rest or rotation, or heaven forbid gets injured, then Law perhaps would be the replacement for that. Or if Carlton's struggling to make an impact through the middle, if Whitehall's not fully fit, could he play as a striker? I don't know, is the honest answer. I'm not really sure on that front. It's a bridge we'll have to cross at the point in which Law is fully fit, whether or not that's in 2, 3, 4 weeks or heaven forbid longer, we shall see. But when the games are coming thick and fast, when you're playing Saturday, Tuesday, that's when you need players like that. You need impact players, because not everybody is going to be playing at their absolute best over the course of the 90 minutes. Not everybody's going to be fit over the course of the 90 minutes. So, Butler being able to turn around to his bench and go, right, I've got confidence in you and you to make a real positive impact on this game for us. That's massive. That's the difference between winning games and not winning games. And ultimately, if it happens enough time over the course of the season, it could be the difference between winning the league and not winning the league.
I think this could be a big game for Butler, because if we don't win, we don't beat Farsley. And listen, there's no easy game. I don't want fans accusing me of saying we should walk this league, HMS Piss League. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I know how the mind of a Scunthorpe United fan operates. There will be serious pressure on Andy Butler if we do not beat Farsley on Tuesday night. It's just the way it is, I'm afraid. How do you see the game going? And do you think we will end up victorious in the end?
I think it's going to be a really tough game. If you actually look at Farsley's away record, particularly at the start of the season, it was very impressive.
Well, they haven't got a home record.
Well, they've got a little bit of a one, but all right, it was Bradford Park Avenue, Guiseley and Alfreton. They've gone to Rushall and won. They've gone to Marine and won. They've gone to Warrington and won. They've gone to Needham Market and won. They beat all right, and they also beat Peterborough Sports at home last week. And those are all sides that are going to be down at the bottom with them. You feel those are massive, massive wins. I think they'll be coming up to Gunford Park with very little pressure. It's not going to be this game for them that defines their season. Frankly, it's probably things that are happening off the field that will define their season for better or worse. There'll be zero pressure on them, particularly if they can keep us quiet for the first half an hour. Then the pressure will be on us. I would back us to get a victory over the line. I'm not sure it'll be pretty. It might be a goal from a set piece. I think back to Farsley away last season when we beat them 2-0. Pretty arguably fortunate decision, certainly with the first Farsley red card. Danny Whitehall didn't cover himself in Borey. And then we spent large parts of that game having to defend really well on at least what I thought was a pretty difficult pitch. I know Farsley fans might want that pitch back. Look, we'll see, but gun to my head, 1-0 goal from a set piece.
I think we'd take it, if I'm being honest. So the FA Trophy draw was made on Monday, and we found out we'd be at home to Warrington Rylands on the 16th of November. An opportunity for Scunthorpe to progress and earn a bit of money. $3,500, we think, is the fee you get for progressing to the next stage. So, bit of an incentive or distraction from the league.
Well, if we're going into the game and not playing that well in the league, I think it's definitely an incentive. If we're in a situation whereby, oh God, we could do with a win, we could do with the bums on seats, even if the crowd's not going to be that great. You said there yourself, Barry. We'll bit of extra cash in the coffers. Our record in the cup in recent years has been dreadful. So yeah, exactly. He knows it as well as I. If this is an opportunity to even just put a little bit of a small dent in that, I don't think we could take a win for granted, as we proved Newcastle Town away, Guiseley away. You look how far Gainsborough have got in the FA Cup and could yet get further. But I'm a big believer in winning football matches, and hopefully that's another one we can win as well.
And of course, similar kind of level of football as well, being in Step 3, just that one division below us now these days. Right, well, I think that was a pretty good episode, if I'm being honest. Really interesting thoughts from the Farsley pair, and nice to get your insights ahead of the game on Tuesday as well. Thanks very much for your time, Max. Up the iron.
Yeah.